Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on Superman Lois Season 4. Today we're going to be breaking down Episode 5, doing my review for the episode, so if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment, and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos later this year. So Episode 5 just finished airing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the episode. It definitely is ramping up, the stakes are high. I loved what happened this episode in regards to Lois and Doomsday. We're going to talk about that because I definitely got chills at the end of the episode, and everything that happened with Lex and his daughter who made their debut for the first time. So we're going to get into all of that, break this episode down chronologically, talk about my thoughts and opinions, so stick around with me throughout this entire video as we hit every point. So the episode opens 17 years ago as Lex confronts his wife, Erica, who it turns out wants a divorce from Lex due to him obviously being so selfish and never really truly being there in the relationship. He's always focused on himself and focused on his company and everything like that, so he wasn't a good husband. And I like that they took a risk, they've gone back, they've done these flashbacks, we're getting to know a lot about Lex as a young person compared to obviously the Lex that we know now, who is gruff and is willing to do anything to get his way. Well, you can see back then he was kind of similar, and he definitely had that same anger and definitely that selfishness that has kind of driven him all these years, even whilst he was locked away in prison. And so he never truly let his wife in, revealing, there was bits in his past that he never revealed to her because he never wanted to discuss some of this stuff. And despite them being together for such a long time and having a daughter, their relationship obviously never really truly worked out, and so apparently he is incapable of love. And I think we really do see what Lex is truly like in this episode, and I really appreciate everything that they did in the flashbacks but also in the present day. But talking of the present day, we go to Amanda, who is closer to finding Elizabeth than ever before, that being Lex's daughter, and Lex decides to go back to Smallville that very night due to finding out that Superman is alive somehow. Now, Clark and Lois, which is the scene after, talk about Lex's imminent return after the news has hit that Superman is back and he is alive. So they know that Clark is in jeopardy, and Clark comes up with an idea that maybe he could reach out to Lex and try and reach him through his heart, believing that he can actually change somehow, or maybe he will listen. And so they figure out, okay, we could talk to Lex's daughter. Well, Lois figures this out. She does talk to Lex's daughter in this episode, but that's after everything has gone down with Superman and Lex when they meet for the very first time since Superman is back from the dead. And what happens after that is that Jonathan and Jordan are hanging out with some friends. They got fireworks in the trunk because they're going to go to a party later, and someone refers to the creature as Doomsday. So I really like that. That was a character called Denise, who we previously saw at the start of the season. She was there when Doomsday dropped Superman's dead body in the middle of Smallville. And so she reveals to the boys that she knows that Superman is their dad. So it seems more and more people are starting to figure out everything that is going on. And I think this is only leading to one place. And you guys need to let me know down in the comments below. Do you believe they are going to reveal to the world that Clark Kent is Superman? Do you think that they are actually leading to this? Because it would seem that with more and more people knowing, the secret's going to get out there sooner rather than later, and potentially this could obviously have a big effect on Superman and the Kent family life. So meanwhile, we've got Superman who confronts Lex, as I briefly discussed before, and as the two meet, Lex instantly jumps to the point where he's like, okay, how did Lois do this? Bringing you back from the dead. He assumes it's alien technology. He is curious about this. Now, do you think he's going to get his hands on that tech? Potentially, I guess if he found out where the fortress was, he could get access to that tech. I don't think he actually knows anything about that yet, but it seems that Lex was curious about how this all happened. But the conversation takes a big turn as Clark tries to reach out to Lex and reach out to some sort of inner human side of himself. He even apologizes for taking the time away from him, and obviously that is in regards to being away from his daughter and being in prison, wrongly imprisoned, even though he should have been in prison for other stuff. But this is when we flash back to Lex arguing with his daughter, who we see for the very first time with his ex-wife as they deal with the divorce, and his ex-wife wants his daughter, obviously that being Elizabeth Luthor, to come live with her in London because that's where she is originally from, and Lex is having none of it. He is adamant she has to stay here, she is his daughter. And with young Elizabeth showing up, she is quickly scared off after Lex screams when his ex-wife accuses him of never showing her love. But back in the present day, we've got Jordan, who is left to welcome Candace back, as Jonathan has to quickly rush off to help Lois, who has a plan. And she asks Jonathan to take her to wherever Elizabeth Luthor is, and we get to see her for the very first time, the modern day version, the current version of Elizabeth Luthor, who is in fact played by Elizabeth Henstridge, who you guys will know from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She directed a lot of episodes of Superman and Lois in the past, and it's been a long time coming that she has finally appeared on the show. I think she did a great job this episode. I liked her as Elizabeth Luthor. I thought it was an interesting twist that she is pregnant. That obviously adds some extra stakes because Lex Luthor is technically going to be a granddad. And Lois asks her during their conversation together to try and reach out to her father, as she believes Elizabeth is the only one who can get through to him. And as soon as Lex finds out that Lois met with Elizabeth, he's obviously extremely mad. He goes storming into the Gazette, and that's when he sees Elizabeth for the first time in over 17 years. But whilst this is happening, Clark goes to the fortress to talk to his hologram mother to try and get help, as Clark and Lois realize that inside Doomsday is actually Bizarro, and potentially there is a way that they could get through to Bizarro, which we've actually theorized about before. I definitely thought, okay, we can't beat Doomsday in combat, so how are we going to get through to him? Well, we know that Bizarro is inside, and if there is any slight hint of him left, there is a way that they could reach through to him. And over in the fortress, we got Clark, who talks to his mum about Doomsday being invincible and the fact that he killed Doomsday many times. I didn't realize this. Like, Superman killed Doomsday many times, but he came back making himself more powerful every time and more angry. He just fueled him every time that he killed him. And so I really like what they did with Superman fighting Doomsday from Clark's perspective, showing it with some amazing music. It's very thrilling and it's intense as you see it from Clark's POV, obviously with Doomsday literally right up in your face. And so it's exciting as it shows that fight once again, and obviously it affects Clark in a big way, and they try and figure out, is there any way of taking him out with these holograms to help, but they quickly come to the conclusion that nah, this is going to be way harder than that. They're going to have to get through to him in some other way rather than defeating Doomsday straight up in combat, because every time you kill him he gets more powerful, he gets more enraged. And so talking of Lex and Elizabeth, they go meet in the diner in Smallville after they meet for the first time, and she explains everything but won't tell him who the father is, and the fact that she doesn't want him to be involved in her life due to the person that he is. And she explains how she wanted to move on from him, how it was hard to grow up with him as a father. Obviously she knows that he's done terrible things, and that made it kind of like an easier decision for her to try and step away, especially when he went to prison. It was probably like the easiest and most logical thing for her at the time. And so we get a flashback to young Lex and Elizabeth, with them being open to each other, and it seemingly being the only person in the world that Lex is kind of normal with. And in the scene he explains how he wasn't ready to be a dad, but then he saw how great she is, and he's basically saying he's so proud to be her father despite being a pretty bad father, but better than his parents who were abusive, as revealed in flashbacks later in the episode. And that still obviously fuels him in some way, and I think that's where he gets a lot of his anger from, just inherently. And so Elizabeth addresses her English Sheffield accent, which Elizabeth, the actual actress who plays Elizabeth, actually has. So I really liked it, and I liked that they gave a little shout out to that in the episode, because it is strange to hear Lex talking to an English sounding daughter, but it makes sense because she moved there imminently afterwards, and also her mum is from England as well. Things do not end up well because she leaves the diner after him blaming Lois for everything and not being able to take responsibility for the mistakes that he's made and everything that he's done in his life. And so she leaves, and that's where they leave things off for now, until Clark manages to convince her to return to the diner, where Elizabeth talks to Lex for one final time, but things don't work out again because, yeah, I mean, Lex is Lex and he has so much hate in his heart, and you get a little stare down between Lex and Clark after this all happens, and clearly Lex is more motivated than ever despite meeting his daughter. And what's most remarkable about this was he's literally been offered the opportunity to choose between going after Lois and reuniting and being a part of his daughter's life, and it turns out Lex is Lex, and going after Lois to get revenge for being in prison for all that time, taking that time away from him and forcing his daughter away from him personally, is more of a big thing than actually throwing that all away and trying to form a new relationship with your long lost daughter who is being open with you. So that really showed what Lex is like and his personality, and I really enjoyed all their scenes together in this episode. I think the two actors killed it. But for now, let's continue by talking about this episode. So let's just hop back a bit, where Clark reveals to Lois that the simulations didn't look good at all if he were to face Doomsday again. So that gets Lois thinking, and she actually finds the ELT to call Doomsday, the device that obviously she's used many times in the past, and this was actually General Lane's one. And so she goes later in the episode to a random location and calls Doomsday, and it's at this point where Jonathan is at the party. He's having troubles with Candace because Candace is figuring stuff out. She knows something is wrong, and you can tell that Jordan is gonna try and figure stuff out, which he does, and we'll get to that when we get to that. But Jonathan shows up before Doomsday, and Lois panics because she's like, I am taking this huge risk, I am calling him to try and get through to him, but now Jonathan has turned up because he's heard the call from the ELT that belonged to General Lane. And so it's at this point that Doomsday does show up. He appears out of nowhere, and Lois talks to Doomsday, and she tries to reach through to Bizarro, who is inside Doomsday, and he remembers his life with Lois on his Earth, and it seems everything is working. And this is where we get to the ending of the episode, which gave me complete chills as I was watching it, and that is because of the music, Lois's voiceover, and the montage of images of Bizarro's life with Lois, with his family. And this leads into Lex finding out that Doomsday went away because he was called away by someone, which he sees on CCTV. That was a great end to the episode. I'm really hyped to see how they figure this out in regards to Lex and Doomsday's relationship, and the fact that Lois is not scared anymore, because at the end of the episode Lois reveals to Clark that they don't have to worry about Doomsday anymore because she has taken a risk. She's tried to reach out to Doomsday, to reach out to Bizarro who's inside there, and it seemingly worked. We'll see how it plays out, but I believe we could be seeing the end of Doomsday in the next episode, whether it's Lex taking him out and taking things into his own hands, because we know Lex will suit up in the Lexo suit at some point this season, or Doomsday somehow fighting alongside Superman because they've been able to reach through to him. And so the final thing that we need to talk about in this episode is in regards to Candace, because Jordan tells Candace everything, and this was something that I expected because of the way that the episode was going and the way that they incorporated Jordan into the story. And for once Jordan looks happy, and he made this choice for the good of his brother, so everything has seemingly been forgiven. He's working stuff out. I'm liking the way that Jordan is being handled this season, and this really lifts a big weight off of Jonathan's shoulder now that Candace knows he's Superman's son. He's got a duty to help his mum when needed, and so that's why he's been so busy lately, and everything's kind of adding up. So that pretty much does it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Let me know, what did you think of episode 5? And to remember, tomorrow we'll have my episode 6 trailer breakdown out, so stick around for that because that's going to be an interesting video for you guys to watch. So for now, click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.